Tad, are you there?
Yes, sir. I
Ah,
am here.
welcome, Tad. I have been looking forward to this. Not that I haven't been looking forward to everything. I'm frankly looking forward to all the stuff. But this is to me so exciting. You're going to be talking about drones in school?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Now, Jim's a hard act to follow,
Oh,
so we'll see what we can do. But we are both Ohioans, so I'm not too far from Jim.
please go right ahead.
All right, very good. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let me get my sound on as well. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. Yes, my name is Tad Douce. I'm the director of a nonprofit here in Ohio called EDU Everything. We have a couple of different competitions that we run. Our whole goal of our organization is to get kids making things in school. So started by what we used to call shop teachers, technology education teachers, and vocational teachers here in Central Ohio. And we started with an event called the National Robotics Challenge. And with the National Robotics Challenge, it was the open source platform for robotics. And so we didn't have a kit to buy. Kids could use their creativity. And that's a big thing of what we do, is trying to get kids to be creative, think outside the box. We want to build more Jim Bruners is what we want to do here in Ohio. So anyway, we're having our event, and kids kept coming and saying, we want to do drones. We want to do drones. We want to do drones. And so we started looking into it, and we started looking at drone racing. And we did an event about 3 years ago as a exhibition event at the National Robotics Challenge with some drone racing group out of Columbus through a connection I met at the Columbus Idea Foundry. And kids were real excited about it. And then as we looked at it, we realized the drone racing really wasn't a robot. They weren't autonomous. They didn't have programming in the racing drones. There are drones that are autonomous, but the racing drones were not. They were more about engineering for speed, and then for the control of the algorithm that runs the control between the controller and the flight controller and the drone itself. So we started exploring, like, well, do we really want to create another robot event that's not a robot? And we decided no, that we had enough of those in the world already. And so we started a new event called Drones in School. And this year we partnered with the CDRA, which is the Collegiate Drone Racing Association, and MultiGP, which is kind of the largest amateur drone racing association, to start the MultiGP STEM Alliance. And we're really committed to middle school, high school, and then hopefully eventually post-secondary with CDRA, with looking at how do we teach STEM with drones. So I'm going to kind of jump in here to get started with our program and what we're trying to do. So first of all, when we started this process of drones, a lot of drones are, maybe if you're familiar with drones, you need a Part 107 license. They're rather dangerous because of the prop speeds and the size. If you have something falling from the sky onto a student, that's not great. And we ran into some big hurdles. We were originally looking at larger racing drones where the props were 3 to 5 inches in size. So the drone would be, foot square, and realized very quickly that teachers and administrators were very fearful of anything that size flying around with their students. So I was introduced to a guy at the Columbus Idea Foundry, again, named Will Nickley, and he was working with these small racing drones called a Tiny Whoop. And I have got a larger Tiny Whoop here. So it's a fairly small drone. This is the largest Tiny Whoop, but it's pretty small. It fits in the palm of your hand. It's pretty light, 50 grams or so, not very heavy. But it was something that was attractive to schools to have them use these in the classroom. So there's other drone racing competitions out there where kids would race drones. And if you maybe seen Drone Racing League on Discovery Channel or ESPN, wherever that's on, those kind of things where people, they buy a drone and then they race it, okay? But we were engineering educators, and we wanted kids to design drones, not just make them or just buy them, open the box and learn how to fly it. We wanted kids to actually learn how to create these devices themselves. So again, it's designed by classroom educators. We utilize a small scale drone technology. It's safe and scalable for the classroom. As I mentioned, we're in Ohio. It's really difficult to have drones in Ohio that have to fly outside because so much of our school year, it's too cold or it's raining or it's foggy or other things that happen where students can't be outside during the day. As a teacher, as a former teacher and now administrator, I realized that the school schedule, you can't just say, well, hey, we can't fly today, so let's just not have school. The kids have to keep learning about the drone technology. So we created something that could fly inside, and that was one of our big goals. Another thing with the Drones in School program is it's more of an entrepreneur program, an entrepreneurship program, in addition to drones. A lot of people think drones in school, like, oh, kids are learning to fly drones, but it's more than that. The students are actually going to create a racing team. So the team is going to consist of 3 to 6 students, but there's 6 roles that have to be filled during the season. One of which is a project manager, a graphic designer, a manufacturing engineer, a design engineer, a marketing coordinator, and a drone technician. So each one of these roles has a certain job to do during the season. Your project manager obviously is in charge of making sure everything's happening and what's going on. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Your graphic designer, you're creating a racing team. Well, what does a racing team need? Well, a racing team needs logos. They need marketing. They need color schemes. They need websites. They need sponsors. They need marketing. So you have your marketing coordinator. We have a manufacturing engineer. As we mentioned, these students have to build their drone. So they start off with a drone like this, but then they will actually use 3D printing technology. I think I've got one around here somewhere. Oh, there it is. They will use 3D printing technology, or really any technology. We don't require them to 3D print it. They can do whatever they want. But this is one that we designed as a prototype. It's a 3D printed frame. So the students will design and basically take this drone apart and then rebuild it into their own student design frame. And they have to race with that student design frame. Your design engineer is handling the design work. Manufacturing is figuring out how do we create these? How do we manufacture them? How do we quickly repair them? Your marketing coordinator, again, is handling your marketing. And then your drone technician is doing all the repair work, radio, tuning, the goggles, and all those things we'll talk about here in a little bit. So what is the competition? So the competition, again, this is designed to be curricular. It's not designed to just be an after-school program. Some of our teams are after school, maybe very similar to like a Vex Robotics competition team may be, but we also want this to be able to be handled in a classroom. So some of our schools are buying kits and drones to start a class where students would go through all this process. So in the competition, what are the students going to have to do? Well, again, obviously they're going to race, right? So it's a drone racing kind of as the hook. However, that's not the only piece of the competition. So at the end of every competition or every event, students are judged on all 6 of these categories. So students are going to create a display booth, which you might think of this if you've ever been to any kind of racing. A lot of times they have a paddock where they'll have all of their branding and they'll have handouts and they'll have brochures, and it's kind of a place to kind of learn about the team. And that's what our display booth was, and you'll see it here later in a video. You have a technical evaluation, which is where we look through your engineering portfolio, which you're going to create. We look through the process you've went through to create this drone. And then we have our engineering judging itself, where we actually will measure the drone that you've created. So we'll take the manufactured drone and your drawings, we measure it and make sure that everything is similar. Every team has to make 2 identical drones. So we check those drones to make sure. Again, if we're studying manufacturing, since we said we're making 2 of these, they need to be identical. You're really not a manufacturer if you can't make the same thing twice. Kind of point what we mentioned with Jim's process before. The idea is to get somebody else to be able to do it as well. We have a video presentation, which is kind of what we call it like a pitch video. So maybe that would be, it tells a little bit about their process, but also gives them a time to market their team and do sponsors recognition, and then the portfolio judging, and then of course the racing. So all of that goes together, and points are awarded for each of these pieces. That goes into a matrix that provides us with an overall winner. However, we have a winner for each of those categories. So you may have a team that maybe they're not great pilots, but they could still win the competition because they've focused on display booth and engineering and video presentation and their portfolio. We had this happen last year, actually I guess 2 years ago, our first year of really having a large competition. Students that got involved, they focused on the racing. Well, then they lost the competition. They figured out like, oh, we can't just focus on one thing. To have a successful racing team, you've got to have all the pieces put together. To have a successful company, it's the same thing, right? You can't just focus on only your product. There's a lot of things that go into that. So that's kind of the competition overview there. We use very similar to engineering design process that we ask teams to follow. So they're going to plan, design, make, test, and race. All that is a loop. So we race, we go back to the drawing board, we plan, design, make, test, race again, and teams are continually iterating. You can kind of see that in the graphic here. This is a team from last year from Chippewa High School. This was their drone that they designed on the top, but you can see all these frames around the outside. These are different frame designs that they went through, and they went through the iterative process of designing a frame and realizing, oh my, that's too heavy. Oh, that's too weak. Oh, that's too much air resistance. There's a lot of things that go into that process to making a drone successfully fly. So going through each of those real quickly here, the first thing is planning. One thing we really pride ourselves on is we've used resources from the Project Management Institute. And I've been a lifelong educator. I've never done anything else. Been teaching pre-engineering since 1996. And I never had heard about project management, that there was actually a body of knowledge and a group that teaches project management called the Project Management Institute. And there is a credential, several credentials you can get, one of which called the PMP, which is a Project Management Professional. I've had kids doing projects my whole life, and I've taught others how to create projects and run projects, but I didn't realize that there was actually a body of knowledge that I could teach students, that instead of me as the teacher being the owner of the project and managing how things were going to happen in the class, I could turn that over to the student, and the students could learn how to manage projects. And if you think about your life, most of everything we do is projects, but we rarely teach project management from the Project Management Institute, which is kind of the experts on how project management is done throughout the world and all the different methodologies of doing so. And the great news is they have free resources. So we've linked into our curriculum, they're free resources. There's tons of things kids can learn to do, and your project manager will be largely responsible for your team. And they are the person that's the lead communicator for your group to make sure that everything's staying on track and getting done properly. You'll see there on the side, there's this is the basics of project management. There's initiation of the project, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing. And as an educator, I had done the initiating and planning part. I'd done the executing part, but a lot of times I fell short on the monitoring and controlling. This is what helps projects get done successfully. This is where you have what's called the scope of the project, and learning how to keep track of the scope and realizing when your scope gets out of line from your original plan. We've all had that happen, where we create a project and then all of a sudden the project gets away from us. We wonder why we didn't get it done in time. So the project manager is going to learn those things. And then lastly, closing the project. So wrapping up, doing that reflection of what went well, what didn't go well, what can we do better next time? And your team can do that. Every race is a project, and they can do that each time. Other planning pieces that some groups are looking at, amateur radio license is something you'll want to get for the video transmitter, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then your Part 107 would be your drone license. And it's not a requirement, but a lot of schools and students are interested. Once they work with these smaller drones, they want to move into a larger drone. And the larger drone then would require that 107 license to do commercial work. The next thing is the design of the drone. So obviously students are going to use parametric modeling software. Right now we have partnered, or we're starting to partner with Onshape, which is a free cloud-based graphic design software. If you're an educator and you haven't looked at it, for parametric modeling, it is really cool. Very similar to an Autodesk Inventor or a SolidWorks, but it's all cloud-based. So we kind of landed on it because we had so many teams this year because of the pandemic needing to be remote, and most of them had Chromebooks, and you couldn't run an Autodesk Inventor or Autodesk Fusion or SolidWorks. None of those were really cloud ready for a Chromebook that we could find. So we ended up with Onshape, and it's really cool because you can run it from anywhere. If you have a web browser, you can run it as long as you have a decent internet connection. So students would design that. They learn how to 3D print and create those models, which is really nice. We have some curriculum we're developing with Onshape to have that available for students to use. And again, it's free for schools to get access to that software. And you don't have to use that. I want to kind of preface everything in this presentation as a nonprofit and our commitment to kind of the open access for students and teams. We have created some curriculum around a specific kit, but teachers don't have to use that kit. You can do your own. If you have Autodesk Inventor, you have SolidWorks, you already know that. You don't have to switch to be involved with this program. The beauty of it is really the process the students are going to go through to kind of create this team and to create their drones. Here's a little video that's kind of shows some examples. So this is actually our winning team from last year. So this is some of their drone designs that they have created. They have different frames that they've made and kind of pros and cons and things that they've done. They created some logos. So you can see their branding they've done. They've kind of built that through their entire presentation, which was very nice. Done a wonderful job. They've been a great advocate for the program. And they've actually created some really cool partnerships. One of the things they partnered with was a group called the EAA. And the EAA was so impressed with what they had done, they offered a scholarship for one of their students on the team to actually get his private pilot's license paid for by the organization, which was very cool. So you see a render there of their drones. You see it gets some pretty advanced technology. Now, the really cool thing with this group of students, they actually are out of a library. So that mostly are homeschool students that work out of a library. And so a lot of teams are like, well, gosh, it looks really expensive. It's going to be a lot to handle. These kids really did it on a shoestring budget. You know, they paid for their drone, but other than that, they mostly found free software and open source software to do what they needed to do. So the next step is you're going to make the drone, right? So you see some examples there of 3D printed frames. We have a vacuum form frame that a team is doing. It doesn't matter to us how you manufacture the drone. You can make it however you want. Again, most teams are using 3D printer technology because a lot of schools have that in place. But you don't have to. You can do anything you want. It doesn't matter to us as far as what you'd like to do. During that process, again, students are going to keep track of those iterations and create that prototype for testing. The next step then obviously is to test your drone. You'll see that the one on the gray carpet. That's how the test usually goes on the first round, right? So usually not going to work perfectly, but that is great, right? We want students to learn how to fail. You're not going to be successful. You're going to have to go back to the drawing board. Things are not going to work the first time, and that's good because that's how we learn. So students are going to go through that process, go through the design and engineering to improve the operation of their drone. Here's a little video of something else you'll be doing in that testing and tuning process is a software called Betaflight. Again, it's open source software. It's completely free to use. And you plug your drone in, and you can actually get a representation of what's going on the accelerometer and the gyroscope. You can control all of the features of your drone, the power features, the accelerometer, how it's going to react. There's all kinds of things you'll see here in the power and battery, and then it'll go to PID tuning. So PID tuning is proportional integral derivative control. It's a very commonly known thing in control theory, but students actually can adjust that and can experiment with how the drone will react to the pilot's input. So it's not just as simple as plug it in and make it fly. There's a lot of tuning that can go into it, and students can actually tune their drone to their specific pilot's preferred flying style. So if the pilot prefers to have a very fast throttle response, they can set that all up. So that kind of goes through a little bit of that. And again, we have tutorials on our curriculum where we've developed to kind of go through all this with your students and for you as well. So then the last part is to race, right? So the students come to a race. We have events. It's very similar. Again, if you've done Beck's Robotics, we use the same system as them for our race registration. And students would sign up and go to a race, get a score, and then they earn points towards the national championship. And the top number of teams are invited to our World Championship race. This year it's going to be August 12th at the Academy of Model Aeronautics in Muncie, Indiana. We're really excited about that. Hopefully we're post-COVID enough we can have a face-to-face event again, which is really great. Here's a little bit of footage of a race. We have two different kind of races. One is called Capture the Flag, which is what you'll see here. These beacons light up, and we have instructions on how to build these beacons. They're just an Arduino and some foam and some LED lights. So your students can build these. If you don't want to build them, you can buy them from us, but we encourage you to have your students build them. 3D printed and just some components you can buy off of Amazon. You'll see the drone flying around. They fly with goggles. So this is actually footage that the pilot would see as they're flying. So you'll see the pilot turning, you'll see he's got his head down, he's actually wearing goggles. Those goggles are seeing the camera. So the drone has a camera on it and you fly from the camera. You don't fly by looking at the drone. So it's a really cool technology. It's kind of an out-of-body experience, and students get pretty psyched when they go through this one time. It is the wildest thing if you've never done it, because you really feel like you're in that drone. We also have a virtual race. Because of COVID, we've had to kind of make some adjustments, and we're going to add this. Again, sometimes things from COVID have been good. They've allowed us to think differently about what we do. This is a virtual race where it's software, it's a simulator, and it replicates what you would do when you're flying. Now, this pilot is very good, as you can see. So you can see the speed of which that they are flying. And these pilots, these students, as they go through and they learn on the simulator, it's great for teachers because they don't break the drone. They haven't flown before. They can learn how to fly, but they also can perfect their skills from home or during a study hall, or wherever they want. They can really get good at flying. And we've just seen tremendous growth in our pilot skill by using the simulator. This is called Velocidrone. It's not free software. It does require a license. It's a one-time fee. I think it's around $25 per seat for that. But you wouldn't have to have every student have a seat. You could have a group at your, in your class that you would set up with that. But really cool technology. There are other simulators out there that are free. This one does allow for the cloud-based racing that we are having with having live races online. And we actually are having one next week. So if you go to our Facebook page or on our website, dronesinschool.com, you'll see links to our races. And you can actually go on and you can watch a race virtually that's done in the simulator, which is pretty wild. Lastly, we have our online resources and our curriculum. That's all available on dronesinschool.com. We have created a kit that we are using that kind of show here. That is a little kit you can purchase. We really were wanting to stay where you could just kind of, you still can use anything you want. And we were kind of hoping to start with that, but we realized it was really difficult for teachers who didn't have a base understanding of drone racing and drone technology. They needed a all-in-one kit they could start with, and then they can build from there. So that's the basics of that. Required equipment, you can buy your own, like I said, or you can purchase our kit. Our kit includes these goggles, the drone, battery charger, radio, and what you need to get started. So how can you get involved? You can go online and race. You can start a team. You can subscribe to our newsletter, or just kind of keep track of us here on Drones in School. So thank you for your time. I wonder if anybody has any questions.
Tad, I want to be perfectly honest. when I was first told that there was going to be somebody talking about drones in school, I'm an ex-teacher, and I have seen a lot of situations where they just buy a drone, the kids fly it around, and they think that's a STEM course. What you are doing is excellent. It's unbelievably good. And not only was I a teacher, I also was an engineer.
Thank you.
And this is what the skills that the students will need in the real world. And when I say will they'll need in the real world, I don't mean that they're going to need it just because they're going to be flying drones in the real world, or even if they're going to
Right.
be engineers in the real world. You mentioned that what we do is projects, and everything we do in life is a project. And this is absolutely excellent. The skills, that the change of their mindset that the students are going to gain in this is just incredible. You really need to be congratulated and probably cloned. Has anyone approached you?
Yeah.
so, so,
Yeah, we're trying to grow the program. I felt the same way as a former pre-engineering teacher, and again now administrator. I want kids to get lifelong skills from these programs, and I think Vex Robotics is another good example that does that. But we want to create. We wanted to add that marketing piece. Like everything now is marketed, right? Every company needs marketing. We have your own. You have your own brand. It teaches kids about branding, and it said project management, video production. All those things come into play. And we're just really excited about the program. We've got a lot of interest on it, and we just really appreciate the opportunity to present here today a gift. It's really great.
I realize that because of COVID, a lot of the teacher conferences have been cut back and curtailed. But have you been to like NSTA or any of the other conferences and shown other teachers what you're doing?
We've been in Ohio. We've done some things here, and we've done some things obviously with COVID. We've done some online conferences, but not tremendously. So certainly, if you have places you think we should be presenting, I'd love to hear those, because I do think that there's a lot of resources. Social media has been really great as far as getting the word out. It's been pretty tremendous. I'm actually running a 3-day workshop. We're going to do 2 hours each day. It's going to be the week after next, and where we're actually shipping all the teachers their own drone kit for the workshop, and then we're actually going to go through the entire process. They're going to do it at their site. We're going to get on to a Google Meet. We're going to create the classroom, have them go through the curriculum. So again, we try to eat our own dog food, where if we want things to be hands-on, then our workshops need to be hands-on as well.
Great. And you certainly welcome teachers to contact you and try and get involved.
Oh, certainly. Yes. Yeah. Teachers, parents, like I said, libraries, homeschool groups, Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout, anybody that's interested. We're pretty open crew, and we just, again, our goal is to get students learning and making, and that is our goal as an organization.
And once again, I know you had said this, but I just want to repeat it for the audience. This is more than just STEM education. They are learning how to function in the real world. No matter what their career is, they're going to use the skills that they're gaining in this activity. They really will.
Yeah.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. This is great. Once again, I'm depressed. I want to be a student in one of your classes, but
well, you can always be a judge or a volunteer coach.
Great.